live stream where we talk about photography, and I always like the audience to drive the conversation. So if you have any questions or have any topics you want to talk about, I'll do my best to answer them or give you my opinion on those things. And also, new this month, I'm going to be running my live streams ad free. So I turned off the monetization or ads. So hopefully YouTube doesn't just stick them in anyway, which they sometimes do. But so I'm going to rely completely on all of your support, either through your participation here in the chat section, clicking the like button, subscribing, or of course becoming a member. Donations and super chats are always greatly appreciated. But uh, because I got a lot of comments about the ads being a little distracting or big turnoff during the streams, and honestly, the revenue's not that much from them anyway. So I thought I'd just to improve the experience to go ahead and turn those off and see how it goes for a month. Uh, because you guys have always been good to me in the past, and it's greatly appreciated. So that said. I haven't been doing much this week in terms of photography. I didn't have any photo jobs, or I didn't really go out much. I did some fireworks last weekend, which I showed you already, and um, I did some pictures of Ellie. Of course, I always do that, and I did go out to Huntley Meadows with my OM3 and 75 to 300, but also my 300 f4. And I just wanted to kind of, just get out at least once this week to do some shooting. Uh, and pictures were okay. I'll share a couple of those that I did. Of course, they're always on my Instagram and Flickr, which I'll pull them up from there. And when I post my images, I'm not trying to post epic shots or anything spectacular. Uh, the main intent is really just to uh, share the EXIF data and so that you can learn a little bit about the settings I like to use. And then, of course, from the image itself, you can see my general compositions and how I like to shoot. And I've pretty much come into a style that I've been struggling with for over a year since I've been struggling my entire 10 or 12 years, however long I've been shooting with it. But it's starting to come together, and it's nothing special. It's basically fill the frame, with the subject is what I do. But I'm still. It's always an evolving process, right? Coming up with a composition and thinking about your photography more as a craft and an art than just getting all of the exposure settings right or using all of the special computational features that are available to us in today's cameras, particularly the OEM systems. Which it it it's curious. I thought I saw an article on 43 Rumors about OM Systems is thinking about adding AI upscaling in camera so that you can get higher resolution. So that brings up a couple of things, right? One is it still an actual photo that you took anymore, or is it something AI just thought was better based on, you know, the AI, right? Because it's adding data that wasn't there before. It has to upscale the image. And I understand it does it intelligently so that it's imperceivable, right? To ideally, it'll be imperceivable that the photo has been upscaled using AI. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about that. I think from a pure photographer standpoint, we're not going to do that, right? We want to capture the image pixel for pixel and be responsible for everything in the frame. And that's our image. But from a creative standpoint, I think there could be a lot of benefits there, right? Because your final image may not be what was generated in camera. A lot of times you take it into post processing and do additional things, whether it's doing composites or adding your own creative artwork to it through graphic design, et cetera, et cetera. So in the end, uh, my opinion is it's better to have it and use it than not have it. and need it kind of thing. So what's the saying? It's better to have it and not need it and not have it, which kind of goes for all of the computational modes right now, which is basically image stacking in camera, right? The live ND, uh, live composite, high res shot mode, all these different things on our cameras are uh, basically stacking, as best I can tell. So, uh, you know, and it's great. I love using like the in-camera stacking. I love using the live composite, and I've been using the high-res shot mode a lot more often now that I have it on the CP button on my OM3. I love that CP button. It's just a very simple change in the workflow, but it's making a big difference in how I use the camera. Because it used to be sort of a menu dive where I would assign a button to one of the computational features, but having access to them all just through the click of a button is, I hate to use the word game changing for me. So I'm excited, I'm really enjoying the OM3. It has, uh, it is still my go-to camera, and I'm very happy uh, that I purchased it when I did. And it seems like the prices are holding on it. I mean, which is, I think a lot of people predicted by now, and certainly by fall, that the price will drop on it down to like 1600, which seems to be the going perception of what that camera is worth. But it's holding its value, and I think you can't really put a value on something when a lot of thought went into the design and build of that camera. And of course, it has all the flagship features, but uh, most of the work was done in the tooling and machining of the camera and the design. And I think that's why it's holding its value because there's really no other camera on the market like it. The closest thing would be probably like a Fujifilm X-T5 in silver or something. Be nice if they came out with black and some other colors like they did with the OM5. They came out with that. I really love that beautiful sand beige color. And it's given me gas like to no end to get that camera, even though I would probably never use it because it's just I have an OM3 and an OM1, and OM1 right now is only a little more than an OM5, the Mark One, because it's on sale. I would, it's hard to recommend the OM5 when you get an OM1 for almost the same price. So, but you can't get it the OM1 in sand beige color. It'd be nice if they started doing that with all their cameras, coming out with different colors, kind of like the old days. I remember Pentax came out with a whole slew of different colors. Um, And I really like Pentax, particularly my Pentax monochrome. They're such great cameras. Uh, it's just unfortunate that, you know, there's pretty much other than their GR3, they're pretty much sticking to the DSLR, at least up to now. So let me go into the chat section and see who's here, and we'll talk about a couple other things. Walter, hey Walter, how are you? Say hi to your lovely wife, and Jeff, good to see you. MT Lynch, good morning. Eric, good morning. Zachary, Marsha, wonderful good morning to all of you from Boynton Beach, Florida. I wanted to retire in Florida. At least I thought I did for so long, but I'm leaning towards like Tennessee, West Virginia now. Rather than the beach life, have more of the mountain wilderness life, right? And let's see, Walter's in Columbia, of course. Uh, Walter's a good friend of mine. We get together time to time. Uh, and let's see. Eric says he bought a Mitsubishi Mirage. The lack of power. I didn't know that had a three-cylinder. Just needs something reliable and cost-effective to travel about. Yeah, because I think you mentioned a couple of weeks ago your car was in trouble, and you didn't want to buy a Leica until you fixed your car. So you solved two problems, right? You replaced your car and got a Leica. Man, how's that working out for you? Eric bought a Leica Q3. I haven't checked your Instagram lately or Flickr to see what you posted from it yet. And Roger, good to see you. Clint, good morning. And wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate the super chat. It's like I said, I'm trying to run these ad free now, and hopefully, it'll work out better for all of us, right? And it says if you use a VPN in Albania as your location, you won't see any ads on YouTube. Oh, interesting. Okay, so there's always a workaround, right? But you won't need to anymore, at least on my live streams this month. And it says your focus bracketing stacking video popped up last night. What a great! Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have a few of those out there, right? Uh, I got a few of those. Some with flash, some go into the fine print and detail. And it's ironic because I actually don't do a lot of focus bracketing in my actual photography. Now that I got the 60 millimeter macro, I got that a couple months ago. I'm trying to do it a little more, but I don't actually practice it that much, in the field. And Walter said, would you prefer in camera or desktop upscaling? I think I'd prefer desktop. Yeah. Like I said, the desktop upscaling is going to be always better because typically you're going to have much more processing power and innovation there, right? When you do things in camera, they do firmware updates and et cetera. But pretty much once you set something up in camera, or design something in the camera, it's fixed, right? With very, very minor revisions, where you can see some substantial updates with desktop software. So yeah, I would prefer desktop overall. But I can see, like I said, having it in camera is one of those, have it in, not need it, then not have it and need it, right? Kind of situation. And Rob, I shoot 90% raw, 10% JPEG for times I just want to shoot photos and not have to worry about post processing. Any good hint settings, or is it worth having a short blog on the subject? Okay, so uh, yeah, I typically shoot raw because I intend to post process 99.9% of the time. I do shoot JPEG mainly for the benefit of the channel because a lot of people like the straight out of camera color science and settings like color profiles and different customizations you can do like in a PenF or OM3. And I do need to get that video out. But to answer your question more directly, uh, you know, long as you get the exposure right, there's really no need to dive into the menu. There are individual settings for JPEG if you want to customize straight out of camera output, like adjusting the tone curve, highlight shadows, right? Or you can adjust the saturation and sharpness and contrast. When I shoot JPEG, it's usually on the extreme side, like I'm trying to apply a specific uh, customization to the colors. But the only suggestion, would be try to, get a feel for the kind of images that you like. Do you like them really high contrast and crispy, or do you like them a little bit softer and more muted? In that case, choose, vivid for the more punchy, high contrast, rich saturation type photos, or choose muted for the opposite end. And then you can go to even more extremes and adjust the highlights and shadows. But just experiment and try different things. If you don't have a preference, sometimes you like high contrast, sometimes you like more muted or black and white. Then get a set up and save those custom settings if you make any, and you may not need to post process. You might be more 50-50 at that point because now you're getting what you want in camera rather than post processing because Robin Wong does so little editing to his raw images, but he shoots raw. But I would argue he could might as well shoot JPEG for the tiny bit of editing that he does to his raw files. The reason I shoot raw is primarily because of the DxO Photo Lab. The optics module and the denoising is so powerful and creates such a crisp image, and it takes lenses like the kit lenses, the 14 to 42 and the 75 to 300, and makes those, you know, just takes them to another level, right? In terms of sharpness and contrast and the overall quality of the images improves so much with raw post-processing raw image using Photolab. And that's why I shoot raw, is because I want to get that little bit extra, right, out of my images in terms of quality. And that reminds me right now, and there's a link below to 25% off everything on DxO. Uh, but I just recommend you get Photolab 8. That's my preferred editor of choice for just about everything. It has a few missing things, like it doesn't do layers or stacking or HDR. You have to get something like Nick Collection to do HDR, and if you want to do any kind of stacking or layering, then you need uh, Photoshop or some other software that does that kind of thing. I think Darktable does it. There's some free options out there as well, like GIMP and Darktable. But for most of my images, I pre-process or process almost everything in Photolab 8 directly. I'm usually working with a single image. And then one overlooked software is Photoshop Elements. I think it's a one-time fee of like $100 or something, and it also has layering and stacking and some AI tools, and it's a pretty powerful software. Hopefully they still make it, but it's very powerful software for $100. And like I said, the final output's not quite as good as something like Photolab, but it does have a lot of extra tools in it that I normally use. And there's been times when I thought about canceling my Adobe subscription and just buying Photoshop Elements, but unfortunately, the workflow between uh, multiple images when I'm stacking and things is a little bit awkward in Photoshop Elements compared to working with Lightroom and Photoshop. So I may do it though, because I'm not doing quite as many jobs as I used to, where I need to do a lot of stacking, like HDR blending and things like that. And Ethan is here. Good to see you. And Ethan says, I just don't feel like OM is missing out on resolution. It's all about size of the image, just upscale after using Topaz or something. Yeah, like I said, I think 20 megapixels is fine. And anybody, if they're being honest, 20 megapixels is more than enough for just about everything. Not, I can't speak to high-end professional commercial type photography where you have to deliver higher resolution images. But I'm talking about the enthusiasts, the the basic jobber, professional. 20 megapixels is more than enough. I've never delivered more than a 3 or 4 megapixel image to my clients. I typically deliver 2 megapixel images, because all they're doing is sharing it on their social media or their website, and everything gets downscaled anyway. So I deliver the cleanest, 2 to 4 megapixel image I can. Giving them any more than that is just unnecessary. Uh, but if you're a professional, your clients may have different requirements, right? Maybe they need 50 megapixels. I don't know, whatever it is. That's a whole different thing. But for most of us and for most of you, my audience, 20 megapixels is enough. And Walter says, I wonder how AI upscaling with different quality from pixel shift. I don't know. Uh, I would say with AI upscaling, you're adding data that wasn't there previously, so there's potential for artifacts or, it's not an actual true to life image. Whereas pixel shift, you'll definitely get every pixel that's in the scene. And that said, not all lenses can resolve the 50, 80, 180 megapixels that pixel shift can deliver. And so I've said this before. I feel like high res shot mode's a little bit overrated. I watch not, and it's not just OM systems. A lot of other cameras are doing this now, and because of a lot of times because of the lens, it's not resolving all those pixels anyway, and the images always look a little bit soft, and you have to do some post processing to get the best out of it. With OM systems, I found OM Workspace to give the best result of the initial high-res shot mode, and then I continue to edit using, say, Photolab. But I'm working on a preset in Photolab that gives me probably 99% of what OM Workspace can do. But using the straight up presets that come with Photolab, the high-res shots aren't quite as crisp as they come out of OM Workspace. Uh, but yeah, AI upscaling, it's you're not going to have that sort of softness that you see in a pixel shift type image. But then the trade-off is you're getting pixels that weren't there. And even says, can't stay for the whole thing, but we'll watch later. Cool. Okay. Hopefully it won't have ads. Let me know if YouTube sticks them in anyway. Uh, Walter, you just got one. Okay. Let me double check my setting. I'm sure I turned it off. Okay. There we go. Now it's off. My bad. Now it's off. Okay. Uh, let's see. And Marco's here. Good to see you, Marco. Good morning. And Zach, good to see you. So you're fawning lately. What does that mean, fawning? That's not my regular conversational vocabulary. Displaying exaggerated flattery or affection. Oh, okay. I guess that's a good thing, right? ATR says ads still playing. Yeah, that's my mistake. I thought I turned them off, but they should be off now. Let's see. And Walter, you're heading out. Okay. Thanks for dropping in, Walter. Good to see you. Michael Colley, good to see you from the DR. And master of in-camera presets for processing. Yeah, I do get some pretty decent images out of the straight out of camera JPEGs when I want to, but I just prefer post processing in RAW. And then Eric says the like is fantastic, except I take the recoil out more because I'm always at work. The place I'm at work on average, you wouldn't want to bring. Yeah, absolutely not. But now you have a Leica, right? So nice. And good to see you, Brian, from the UK. All right. So again, if you have any questions or want to talk about anything, I guess uh, I'll show a couple images I did this week over at the Huntley Meadows this week and talk about those. See if I can pull it up. Sorry, my microphone went out. Let me just go back a little bit. So what I was trying to say here was I really like the composition of this particular image. I liked how the light was hitting the bird, and I like the little leaves down here to kind of frame the image and give something a little more interesting than just a clear blue sky. So this is one of my favorite images from the day, and there's always EXIF data down here. You can see the camera and lens I used and all of my settings. I always try to upload the EXIF data, and then also over here, you can see I always try to upload the full resolution of the image, and you can see here that I cropped in down to about 3 megapixels, less than 3 megapixels. So the actual number of megapixels on this image or on the bird itself is probably well under 1 megapixel, probably a half a megapixel of data here. But it still came out really good, I think. Um, Plenty of detail. And this is what I mean when I mentioned earlier about delivering images to my clients. I usually just deliver 2 to 4 megapixel images. This green heron here, this is very heavily cropped. What I was showing is that this is less, this is about 1 megapixel total. So the bird itself is probably about a quarter megapixel of data. And this is a very young green heron, uh, and it's really far away. Okay, let me just check. Let me check make sure my audio is still on. Looks like it. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, this is a little bit different composition than I normally do, where I have the bird facing out of the frame. And I'm starting to get a feel for when this kind of composition it works. I think it works in this image where the bird is facing a little bit out of frame. Because typically I would like to have a little more room on the right than on the left. But I really like these flowers here and the bird facing out to the left, and also the bird you'll notice is facing away from the camera a little bit as well. So I think this combination of elements is what makes this particular composition work, which is opposite of what I normally do. And I'm finding more and more compositions where I'm trying to go for this type of I'm trying to go for this composition where uh, if it's an animal or a person, they're looking out of frame rather than into the frame. But all the elements have to kind of come together. And I think in this particular image, it did work. Let me know what you think. Maybe not. Maybe it sucks. Okay, this image here, this one here is 10 shots focus stack. I tried to focus stack this in camera. I was using the 300 f4 with the teleconverter, and I just could not get a good in-camera stack of this image. It didn't come out too good, so I took the images out and stacked them in. In this case, I used Photoshop, I believe, and it came out great, I think. And there's a lot of fine detail here. Uh, you probably can't see in the stream, but you can actually see the layers in the eye here, the little honeycomb pattern of the eyes, and then you can see all the details in the wings and the body here. The only flaw with this image really is there's a little bit of artifacts here around the wing. These are focus stacking holes, so to speak, where that's due to there was a lot of motion in this image. I wasn't able to hold the camera that steady, and also there's a little bit of focus breathing as well, and that's typically the problem. So on the right side you don't see this ghosting, but on the left side you do because the detail is blurred out. But overall, I'm happy with this image, and this was cropped in roughly. This is about 7 megapixels altogether for the whole image. So there's maybe 4 or 5 megapixels here on the dragonfly. And this one here is, I just thought this pose was pretty cool. Like he's lifting his arm up to say hi. But this is a great blue heron in Huntley Meadows, and this was really late into the evening, so the lighting was very low. Because if you look at the ISO, it's ISO 12,800, and I was able to drop my shutter speed down to 1/400th of a second, and I'm at f4, and I got I got a great image, I think. But even at 1/400th of a second, I was at ISO 12,800. It's crazy. But if you punch in and you can see that I use this DxO Photo Lab 8. Again, the 25% discount code. Today's the last day, by the way. 25% discount code, and my affiliate link is down there. It does such a good job at cleaning up the noise and bringing out the detail and this is one of the main reasons this is my favorite editor. That the final output is just amazing. And of course, the combination of the OM300 f4 lens is a, a spectacularly sharp lens. So this would be my lens of choice. Given everything that's available now, this would be my lens of choice. Bang for the buck. I mean, I know it's a $3,000 lens, but your alternative to get this kind of sharpness and speed and stabilization is the 150 to 400, which is a $7,500 lens. And I get it. That's a better lens. Okay, no, hands down. But in terms of versatility and reach, it's the better lens. But I think in terms of image quality at the 300 millimeter and 400 millimeter focal length, this lens is just every bit as good in my opinion. But okay, but yeah, I wanted to show this one off a little bit because I like the pose. The image, this is my typical composition, fill the frame with the subject, and this was an interesting pose. Some beaver was there, dragging some leaves there, I guess, for food. But yeah, I rarely see the beaver there in person. I see the effects of the beaver everywhere in the park, fallen trees and big mounds of sticks. Beavers do those kind of things. So it's kind of cool to see the beaver. And again, this was pretty late in the evening. I think, oh, the timestamp's not here, is it? Let's see. Sometimes yeah, the timestamp is here, 1908. So that would be 7 p.m. In the evening. Okay, this shot here, this is a handheld high-res shot, and I'm at ISO 5000. And this guy was hardly moving. So it was a great opportunity to try the handheld high-res shot mode. And you can see I got so many pixels onto this blue heron here. This image came out to be what, 6 by 5. So this is about a 32 megapixel image using high-res shot mode, handheld high-res shot mode. And I was at 1/400th of a second. So again, amazing image stabilization from this lens built in because it works in sync with the camera. And ISO 5000, a lot of the noise got reduced by the high-res shot mode in of itself, but then going through DxO and doing the little bit of sharpening, I think I was able to extract some really amazing detail out of this bird. Now down here, there's a little bit of motion blur, so the details, yeah, not quite great down here, but it's really good up in here. So I like that. This is a regular shot. This was not handheld high res. Uh, but even at 20 megapixels, I mean, I got tons of detail here. And I would argue it looks even better than the handheld high-res shot mode because I didn't have to worry about motion blur as I did with the high-res shot mode. Uh, it's the same bird, obviously. And this image here is 3 by 4. So this is about 11 megapixels on the bird here. And again, my typical composition, fill the frame, you know? But I like the distracting element here of the leaf being a little bit out of focus in front. These leaves here, I think it frames the image very nicely. And I think this image actually works a little better than the previous one, where we have some nice foreground here, but I kind of like this one here a little better. It balances well, it frames nicely, and we got great contrast here between the greens and the blues. And of course, that orange beak always stands out really nicely. Okay, here's a turtle. This is with the 75 to 300 kit lens. We're at ISO 1600. And, you know, I always tell people, the 75 to 300 lens is a no-brainer. It's so lightweight and compact. I like to take that out a lot of times when I don't feel like taking out my 300 f4. And I don't have to worry too much about the quality of the image because of Photolab 8. I can get really excellent sharpness and detail out of that lens. The only time I really take out the 300 f4 is when I need the fast autofocusing motors and I'm going to be in lower light. So, but for just about everything else, the 75 to 300 is a fantastic lens. And I tried to demonstrate some of that here. This is also the 75 to 300. You can see really excellent detail here. You can see the little fine fur on the bumblebee. Uh, this is also the 75 to 300. We're at ISO 320, handheld at 1/250 of a second, and we're at 300 millimeters. So this demonstrates or illustrates the stability of the OM3 in-camera image stabilization at 300 millimeters, which is a 600 millimeter equivalent. And if you punch in, you can see the little honeycomb pattern in the eyes. You can see the little fine hairs coming out of the dragonfly. And of course, all of the detail on the wing. Uh, I could not focus stack this image because dragonflies don't normally stay in one spot too long. So the depth of field is pretty shallow because I was pretty close and I was able to fill the frame. And if we look at the dimensions here, we're at about 3 by 2. So we're at about just under 7 megapixels here total on this dragonfly. But I thought this again, this would not have been possible, I think, in any other software. DxO Photolab just really is good at bringing out the details and suppressing the noise in a very intelligent way so that you can maximize the image quality. There's no way the straight out of camera JPEG would have looked this good. But I thought that came out exceptionally well and is a very excellent illustration of the image stabilization, sharpness of this lens, and the post-processing power of DxO. And that is my workflow, right? This is just a simple sunrise scene, 75 to 300, or sunset, I'm sorry. Another 75 to 300 image. This one's at a higher ISO, 1600. But again, look at the detail and lack of noise in this image. And again, filling the frame, I was trying to see if I could use that same idea of blurring, having a little bit blurry in the foreground, blocking the subject partially. Didn't quite work quite as well in this frame. But I did get, looks like 4 by 2. So I got about 8 megapixels on this image. And then this is back to some backyard birding that I did. This is my own backyard. This is the 75 to 300 and EM5 Mark III. Again, you know, basically an entry-level camera with an entry-level lens. But because of the power of DxO, I was able to extract a lot of detail and capture this image. this is a tough camera to get uh, small birds like this in flight. This camera, the EM5 Mark III, and by default, the OM5 and OM5 Mark II, these are not easy shots to get. Out of thousands of images that I take because of using Pro Capture and stuff, I'm lucky to get one like this. Most of them are bird on a stick, bird on the ground here type shots. This is all 75 to 300. Uh, these bird and flight shots are really tough with that camera. They're very easy with an OM3, OM1, but the uh, OM5, OM5 Mark II, it's tough to get these kind of shots. I like this shot because I got this big blurry, like giant pigeon in the background. I thought it was kind of cool. Okay, so that's what I've been doing photographically this week is really that one trip out to Huntley Meadows and a little bit of backyard birding. And oh, Jerry passed away. I'm so sorry, Robert. Oh man. I watched a video a couple of months ago with Jerry in it. He was looking good. Wow, that's a bummer. I'm gonna send him an email, but if you get a chance, go over to Robert uh P. Donato's channel and drop him condolences or something. Wow, that's brutal. I know what that's like, man. Losing a long time uh essentially family member. It's heartbreaking. Okay, yeah, lots of checks here on my sound. I'm sorry about that. Uh yeah, that's a bummer. So, but I'll tell you what, though, Roberto gave Jerry the best life that she could possibly have, you know, and had a very good life. And I'm sure he has no regrets about his time with Jerry. So there's that, right? And that really should apply to your not only your pets but to the people in your life as well. Is don't have any regrets when they pass away or you pass away. Don't have any regrets on your deathbed or theirs. Always treat your friends and family uh, and do the most and best that you can with them. I think that's really the key to happiness in life, right? Is not having any regrets, at least with respect to friends, family, and pets or otherwise. And don't forget to love yourself as well, right? Um, just know that you're awesome, and that's also part of the key to happiness. Okay, that's all I had going on, and I didn't see any questions here. So, when you drop a mic like that about Jerry, that's pretty tough. That is pretty tough. Um, Trying to think if there's anything else going on. I think that might be it. So maybe I'll have a short stream today. Uh, we'll just call it. I'll give the chat section another minute if there's any questions or anything, but or if I can think of anything. I'm drawing a blank now because I didn't go out and shoot like 3 or 4 days this week. I normally shoot 3 or 4 days a week, kind of hardcore, like make an effort. But I only really went out one time. I did notice that. Oh, I did get something new. I will show you. I was going to share this on Tuesday, but I can share it with you guys now because I know a lot of guys don't come on Tuesdays. But I did end up buying this little camera It was like $28 on my deal page. So if you go to robtrek.com/deals, it'll take you to my Amazon page where this is there for $28 now. But this is a cool little camera. Takes crap pictures, but you know, I think if you have a photographer friend in your life, this would make a great gift, right? Because no photographer in their right mind would buy such a thing for themselves. I guess you could if you just like toys. Uh, but this is kind of cool. It takes I don't know 12 megapixel images on a tiny sensor, and it also records video. And it has a top down. The screen is actually here. Let me turn it on. It's a little slow to turn on, isn't it? It'll get there. Wow, it's never been this slow. Ah, Chinese crap here. I think it's frozen. Yeah, it's frozen here on the startup screen. Yeah, you just plug the USB in. Maybe it's the SD card. So, this actually even happened on my real cameras. Sometimes the SD card is the problem. Wow. Well, that's going to the Amazon return. I was just using it this morning. Oh well. It's kind of cool though. I don't know if it's worth $28 as a paperweight. Maybe. It has a little bit of heft to it. Okay. Let's see. Oh wow, a bunch of stuff came in all of a sudden. He said, "Good morning, Rob. Finally got the Pentax. Oh, the Takumar 50 and the TT Artisan 75 1.5 M42 lenses to work on my Z8. Ran into problems on photodiodes adapter having an internal flange. Oh yeah. Uh, it's a little piece that sticks out sometimes, right? Well, that's cool. Do you have a Flickr or Instagram? We can go look at your pictures. That would be cool. And oh, Puncho is here from New York. What is the website to compare camera size and weight? You mentioned that in a prior live stream. Oh, there's a couple. I'll give them to you both. Let's see. There's this one. There's one. This one, the one I'm giving you now is a little bit more up to date, but the user interface is not quite as friendly. And then there's another one. This one, the interface is a little bit more modern, but then it's not as up to date. Okay. So there's the two. So this one here is pretty much up to date in terms of the camera selection, but the interface is a little bit older, right? So like there's the XT50, and I can compare that to say, uh, let's see if they have the OM5 in here yet. They have the OM3. but not the OM5. Not that you need to, but uh, so there's that. And then you have to kind of click and then camera number two and click there versus say this one here. This one here, you can just type in X key. See, they don't have the XT50 in there, but they got the XT5. And then I can add another camera like the OM-3. See, they don't have the OM3 in there. How about the OM1? So they do have the OM1, but not the OM1 Mark II. You can kind of compare these side by side, but then you can just click one button and it'll automatically sync the view. The other thing with this one is you can add a lens, like their standard kit lens, which is what this one, and then a 12 to 40 Pro, and it'll give you the total weight of the lens and the camera combined together. So if I hover over, I can see that this lens is 655 grams. The camera is 557 grams. So you add these two together, and you get 1,200 grams for the Fuji X-T5 in a kit lens, right? On the OM1, you get 981 grams for the kit lens. Not well, it's not really a kit lens, but an equivalent lens and the body. So it's a good 300 grams lighter right there. Even though initially when you look at it, it looks like the uh, XT5 is smaller and lighter than the OM1. And that's always the case with camera systems is once you start adding the lenses on, it's very hard to beat Micro Four Thirds. Because the XT5 definitely is smaller and lighter. But it's when you start adding the lenses, equivalent lenses, that you start to run into the differences. Okay. And 1 second here. Rob, would you do a how to set up the OM3 video, including the front dial setup combinations? I will. I will soon. I'll try and do that this month. I don't know if I can do it this week because I got to finish reviewing a flash. Um, this thing here. I'm running into some challenges with this flash. I'll talk about it in my video. Nothing major, no deal breakers, but definitely things I need to work on. And that stops both lenses from screwing all the way in the adapter, interference from the pins. Yeah, I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I've seen that before. Uh, totally agree with you. No regrets. I know, right? So you need to be sure there's no interference on the adapter. The Photos CM42 to NZ does not have the problem of having a flange inside the lens. It is also cheaper at 1/5 the price. Oh, okay. It's good to know the brands and things, right? Which ones work and which ones don't. This came up with the extension tubes, where uh, certain brand of extension tubes allowed you to use the teleconverter with the 60 millimeter macro lens, and other brands did not. And plus, I spent all day talking to photodiag support and have a solution by using two adapters, an M42 to M and a Leica M to Z, mount to removing the flange on the M42 LM adapter. So an M42 to Leica, okay, and then the Leica M to Z. So you have that first. then the M mount, then the lens. Oh, I see. Luckily, there's that much availability in terms of flange distance, right? That's that's a very clever solution. Very clever. Normally, that's not going to work on anything else, but because Leica M has a very short flange distance, you can get away with it. Probably that gets me thinking about maybe some other combinations. Because whenever I buy a manual mount lens when I'm shopping, I always look for the M mount version. Because the M mount version I can adapt to all of my different cameras because it has a very, very short flange distance. And Gordon's here. Good to see you, Gordon. Good morning, one and all. One question related to the TG cameras. Which light would you add for macro, the LG1 or the FD1 or equivalent? Okay, I think the LG1 is works off the LED light. That's the one that I use. Um, and that's going to be good for most cases when you're doing macro this close, right? Then the LG1 is better. The FD1 uses the flash. If you need to if you're gonna have some working distance, like say you're taking a picture of a flower, whether it's a smaller flower or a larger flower, the FD1 is better. So uh but that's close-up photography. That's not really macro. For macro, the LG1 is better. Or just go with the photo see right, so you don't have to do that workaround. But ultimately the flange distance would be the same, right? Yeah, it would have to be. Cool little camera. I'm waiting on the 1.5 too, but heading off on vacation today for 2 weeks. Didn't arrive. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, the 1.5 Mark II is such a great little camera. And thank you so much, Paul, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It looks like having no ads might pan out. If I can get a super chat here and there, then I don't need to put ads on. Or you can become a member for 99 cents. If I had 100 members, I don't have 100 members even, but if I had 100 members every month, that would I would need, yeah, I would need closer to, no, about 100 members would offset the advertising revenue. Not quite, not quite. 200 members would offset the, because I forgot YouTube takes about a third of that away. But yeah, about 299 cent members out of 43,000 subscribers would offset the advertising revenue easily. And Rob, is Glen Echo a decent spot to bring Leica around or Cabin John area? Uh, I think the Leica would be better in a street situation. It's more of a street photography camera, so I would try Old Town Alexandria. Glen Echo is a relatively small park, so you'll be done like in about 30 minutes. You could take your time and try and find compositions and do some interesting thing with the neon lighting. And maybe if you had a model there, whether it's your family or anyone, then you could spend some time there. But because that is a fixed focal length lens, it's not really a portrait lens. So I would probably lean towards going to Old Town. Uh, then you could spend easily several hours shooting with the Leica. I don't think you could shoot more than 30 minutes with a 28 millimeter lens at Glen Echo. I'm not as familiar with the Cabin John area. And Randy is here. Good to see you, Randy. I saw you had a video up for some new tires. I was going to watch that later. And let's see, Walter's still listening on his morning walk. Good for you, getting some exercise. Do you have your camera with you, Walter? I'm curious. And let's see. Oh, wait, my chat jumped all the way up. My bad. Uh, so Randy is here. So Randy's been here a while. And Peter says, just because I could have adapter to mount my Mamiya RB67 lens. Hmm, wow, that lens is going to be bigger than the camera. And Jan is here. Wow, Jan, it's been a while. Here, Rob, don't you find weird that they put the gas to stack sensor on the street photography camera instead of the outdoor camera adventure one? Same for the higher weather sealing. I think in if they were developing from scratch, right? If they could, I get where you're coming from because the idea being is that a stack sensor doesn't have the same dynamic range as, say, just a normal unstacked sensor. So you would use an unstacked sensor like for landscape photography and a stack sensor for sports action type photography because of the very low rolling shutter. And to be fair, even the non-stack sensor from Olympus that like is in the OM5 and the EM1 Mark III has a very fast readout speed to begin with. So rolling shutter has never really been an issue with those cameras either. That said, uh, the the street camera having all of the if they wanted to put all of the flagship features in the OM3, and I like that it's weather sealed because having weather sealing is not just an outdoor adventure type thing; it's a street photography thing as well. So if they're going to go through all of that, uh, I don't know. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't think it's strange, but the OM5 Mark II, a little bit of a stretch to call it a Mark II. I think that's been discussed, but that camera, like I said, the readout speed is pretty fast. It doesn't need a stack sensor. You really have to get. Yeah, I think it's more along. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think it through because this is a good question. I think it has to go more along with price point and market segmenting, right? So in terms of price point, if they wanted to keep the OM5 down to the low thousand range, right? In this case, 1199, they'd have to put the non-stack sensor in there because stack sensors are more expensive. And if they put the stack sensor in, then they're going to have to use all of the newer processing engine. It's going to drive up the cost of the entire camera up to say what an OM3 costs. So it makes sense to me that the key things that are important to outdoor adventure type photography is the weather sealing, right? That's the key thing. And then having the computational modes for live ND um, and high res shot mode, live composite to a degree, starry sky AF. They kept probably 80% of all the things that an outdoor adventure type person would want in a camera without having to put in a stack sensor. And also keeping that dynamic range, such as it is, there's not much difference between the stacked and unstacked on Micro Four Thirds. But uh, they're just trying to meet a price point while at the same time the OM5 still meets, I would say, at least 80% of the needs of an outdoor adventure camera. Uh, so that's that. The OM3, being a street camera, they put everything in there And having a very fast, responsive autofocus system with the better face detect and subject detect and the weather sealing, all of those things make sense. I think the OM3 makes sense at that price point. So I don't think it's weird, right? So say, for example, they did what you're saying, the prices would be inverted, and then you would have basically a Pen F in a DSLR style, right? Because if you buy the OM5 in silver, it pretty much looks vintage already. So I think it makes more sense what they did. And all of that being said, OM System doesn't have the breadth and resources in terms of R&D and uh, finances to really expand their camera lineup to kind of cover it all. So just the direction they decided to go with. But it was a good question. Uh, so my OM3 M1 Mark III connects to my gimbal, but the OM1 will not. Yeah, that's interesting because they use basically the same. Hmm. The only way I've ever connected my camera to my gimbal is just using the standard shutter release cable. I don't really use the USB-C port, which I assume is what you're talking about to connect it to the gimbal so it'll control the shutter. I just use the regular 2.5 millimeter cord. So it should, if all you're worried about is releasing the shutter, then just use the 2.5 millimeter jack. Yeah, faster. Okay, got you. I got you. How are the presets in DxO? That's really what keeps me in Adobe is I like their cinematic and retro. Oh yeah, there's dozens of presets in DxO, dozens. And they have LUTs also. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. If I have it up, for example, let me find an image that's worthy of a preset because most of these are kind of the same image. Um, let's see. What do I have in Old Town? Like, take this image here. I can go to the color panel. So you have some basic presets here: natural, vibrant, portrait, right? Neutral color. But I can do apply preset, and down here, I have portrait and landscape presets in here. Black and white presets. Let's see what this looks like. Polarized postcard. Well, that's interesting. Or I can try candy colors. I don't know. They have a lot of different stuff. Let's see. Tons of black and white. And let's see, atmosphere. So these are more vintage looking, right? That looks pretty vintage right there. Um, or we can do. I have some more down here. Uh, some HDR presets, some smartphone presets. That's useless. Okay, the rest of these you have to buy film pack to get, or you can use Nick Collection. Oh, these are standard presets in here. No, that's film pack too. So that's pretty much the basic presets that you get for free. And then they have LUTs, which is also included, like this. They have 15 LUTs in here. Oh, Quicksilver's pretty cool. And they have standard, pastel. I like that one. Summer. So yeah, there's a lot. More than enough to get started anyway. And then if you get Film Pack or DxO's Nick collection, you get hundreds more on top of that. Darko, good morning. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well. And yeah, I use the USB-C. So my gimbal came with a USB-C to 2.5 millimeter jack. So I can control the shutter with my gimbal. Yeah, I use your S23 Samsung. Yep. I only use my camera phone for uh, taking pictures of business cards and menus and just documenting things that I need that I want to reference later. And you also bought an 18 millimeter Sony point and shoot pocket camera, which has IBIS and GPS. Really? Wow. And Marco says, do you think development has stopped of MFT sensors? Have we seen the peak of OM systems and Panasonic will release? Well, if you're talking about the sensors, yeah, we've peaked. There's going to have to be a major shift in technology before we see anything new. I mean, I know the global shutter is kind of the newest thing that Sony has, but we haven't seen that trickle down to any other camera in any manufacturer, right? Uh, but that'll be the next thing, and I'm sure OM Systems and or Panasonic will have a global shutter one day. But as it stands, BSI stacked sensors is pretty much it. They have no interest, it seems, in going to a higher resolution because they're trying to balance resolution with performance and image quality. So I think we're stuck at 20 megapixels for a while, at least until I would say at least another 3 to 5 years. We're going to be at 20 megapixels. Um, yeah, I just don't see that changing because they don't have the R&D to develop a new sensor. I know Sony makes all the sensors, but sometimes like Canon, they design their own sensors. I think they even have their own fabrication plant to make their sensors. I don't know that for a fact, but Canon has all the R&D and money to do things like that. But everyone else is buying Sony sensors off the shelf, right? So unless Sony comes out with something new that OEM systems can use and it doesn't compromise performance and image quality, I don't see us moving on. Now, the Panasonic has that 24 or 25, I forgot, but it has a higher resolution sensor. But there's definitely a compromise in noise performance and image quality going to that higher resolution. It's nominal for most of us. Most of us are not shooting at ISO 25,000 all the time. So we're not going to see the difference and we can appreciate the higher resolution. But then there's a difference in performance in the dynamic range and uh, I would argue even the rolling shutter performance, right? So there's some performance issues there as well that we don't have in our 20 megapixel stack sensor. So yeah, I think we've peaked until we go to a global shutter, and that could be a while, a long while. Okay, I'll check out DxO today. Thanks, Rob. Sick of the monthly charge of Adobe, yeah, because you can get it for under $200 with the discount code. It's well worth it. Gimbal is Zion Weevil. I think I have the same one. I don't know what brand mine is. or maybe it's a Tech or something. Yeah, okay, I don't have this. I have a Zion, but it's an older one. I have a Manfrotto, and then I have this other one. I can't pronounce the name of it. But you should have gotten a cable USB-C to 2.5 with your Weeble that allow you to just release the shutter. And the Sony point and shoot has a BSI CMOS sensor as well. I'm thinking of making it an infrared camera. What do you think about infrared photography? It's pretty cool, but I would probably do it uh, to an interchangeable lens camera so you can try different lenses. Um, but I've tried infrared a little bit. It's okay. I haven't gotten into it, even though I have either an infrared filter and I also have a dedicated infrared camera, and I just never really got into it myself. But probably if you really want to get into it, experiment a little bit with just buying like a $30 filter. You want a 720 nanometer infrared filter, and just experiment with the photos with that. And there's a little bit more overhead in the shutter times and post processing, but ultimately you can get really cool infrared images that way. And if you really get into it and enjoy it, let's say you build up a portfolio of, say, uh, just come up with, say, 10 shots that you really like. I'm not saying you need to get 1,000 images. If you got 10 pictures that you really like, then I would say, okay, try investing in, maybe go on eBay and find a used one that's already been converted to infrared. It's a lot cheaper than converting your own camera. You can probably buy one already converted for a lot less than buying a camera and converting it. Then maybe get into it. But I can't even point to 10 pictures that I like that I did with infrared. Uh, Not that I tried that hard, because the few that I did, I said, "Oh, this is okay. Nothing special. At least not to me. I didn't find it that interesting. It's kind of cool, but I didn't get into it." I guess the all-in-one will have a shutter like the A1 or Z9 if it doesn't interfere with IQ or computational features. So, I mean, I assume you mean the all-in-one will have a shutter. So I'm not familiar with the A9, but I know the Z9 doesn't use a mechanical shutter. But the next all-in-one, they got to keep a mechanical shutter. I just don't see them. I think that I don't think they're going to go without a mechanical shutter. It's just needed a lot for flash photography. Your sync speed is limited to 1/100th of a second as it is. If they can somehow up that to 1/400th of a second, because I think the Nikon Z9 has a very high sync speed, then maybe they'll do that. If they can solve the flash sync speed issue, then you can do away with the mechanical shutter. But I don't know if they can do that without going to a whole new sensor. Um, what is the Sony A1? I thought that was a 50 megapixel, but that has a mechanical shutter. The A1 Mark II is global. Oh, it's a full frame stack BSI CMOS. I'm positive that has mechanical shutter too. Quick capture. Anywho, yeah, it does have a mechanical shutter. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure exactly what. Oops, my bad. Uh, what the question is here. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the bird shots, they came out okay. They came out pretty good. Oh, you made the EPLA full spectrum. Okay. Of course, Randy's out in the desert, right? So it's always sunny and bright there. So you can, infrared makes a lot more sense. Like when it gets wintertime here, there's not a lot of infrared photography going on because it's cold and it's not because you need hot weather, but there's no leaves on the trees and things like that. So yes, I'm drinking Maxwell House. This is raw coffee with a little bit of vanilla cream. Let me see if I have any infrared shots on my Flickr. I don't think I do. 'Cause like I said, I didn't take many. Yeah, I don't think I have any. Do one more quick search here. Yeah, I don't have any. Like I said, they're kind of cool, right? It's like these things. It's- Some of these are, yeah, this one's pretty well done. This is a black and white. But I think these are things you can do with like this is a converted camera. This one's also converted. Wow, a lot of people really got into it. But yeah, I don't see like a lot of mine came out like this, just kind of plain. This is what I mean about wintertime infrared. There's not much going on. Uh, anyhow, A1 has no mechanical shutter, but electronic is super fast, like the Z9. That's why I meant, oh, okay. So when I was looking at the spec, 30 frame per second in electronic shutter. It's not really, I mean, it has to push 50 megapixels through instead of 20. But our cameras will do 50 frames per second electronic shutter. So we're kind of already there. I mean, the the OM1 and the OM3, they'll do 50 frames per second with electronic shutter. So we're kind of already there. The key thing is the Z9 has no mechanical shutter at all. So what is the Z9 flash sync speed? This is the key difference, I think. Yeah, it has it's 1/250th. That's pretty amazing. This 1/250th sync speed. Let's see what the Sony A1 is going to have a similar 1/200th or 1/250th. Oh, it has a 1/400th in mechanical. Electronic shutter is 1/200th. So the Z9 is actually faster than the A1. an electronic. And that's where the all-in-one falls a little bit behind. The flash sync speed is 1/100th of a second with electronic shutter, but we're almost there. I have no idea. I know they use full spectrum cameras, right? And then they get black and white images, and then they have to filter them. I'm not into that high, this would be a better question for Ben. But I know that they use cameras that don't have a Bayer array. But since but I don't know if anybody's converted a camera then tried to use it for astro. I don't know. I mean, it makes sense that you could, but then you'd have to have some hardcore post-processing to filter out all the different colors in a no, you'd have to have the Bayer array because all you're doing is removing the infrared. So I don't know. Interesting. Because I think the key is the hydrogen spectrum in astrophotography that you have to not filter out. So by removing the infrared filter, you're getting that's beyond me. It's beyond my technical skill or technical knowledge, right? And sad when mechanical shutter completely goes away. I love the sound of that tactile feedback. Yeah, that's true. Rand says, I have quite a few full spectrums on my Flickr. Oh, let's take a look. Whoops. So I don't know if you put them in a folder or not. I remember when you were doing these turbines, that was a cool project. Uh, let's see. So I assume this is, yeah, there's one. Yeah, this is cool. These full spectrum cameras are really cool. So you converted this camera. I see. The PL8. It's interesting. So you still get colors and everything, but they're just kind of oversaturated, right? Okay, cool. So check out Randy's you can see it here right along Randy if you want to check out some of those. Yeah, make an album. It's a little tricky to find them, right? I mean, I can search for them, but Jan says, did you see the article on Petapixel that they publish these days? They say OM System is considering it. Yeah, I saw that. I talked a little bit about that in the very beginning. Uh, and ultimately, I just said it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I think that the purest photographer, it's already stretched to use the computational features that we have, live ND, live bulb, all those things, right? And then they go even further and start adding pixels that didn't exist to upscale is another step beyond, I think, what any purist photographer would want in their images. But for a lot of people, it's not a big deal. You just want the higher res. If it still looks realistic and convincing that you can't tell the difference, then why not? And then use that as part of your creative process. So I'd probably be one not to use it too much personally, because I'm a little bit more on the purist side, even though I do a lot of post processing. I'm more purist because I want every pixel in an image to actually exist and not be generated. But a lot of times, the fact that some pixels are generated doesn't matter to the final creative process, right? But I did see that. And then, how are your real estate jobs these days? I got two job calls from bands while I was away, but could not take them. Yeah, not getting a lot of jobs. Uh, my problem is I'm not willing to do it for the tiny bit of money that they're willing to pay. The market is so competitive. You got guys out there shooting a 4,000 square foot house for $200. Granted, the quality's not great, but that's all the agents are willing to pay. I'm not I'm not willing to deliver subpar images or images that are less than what I'm capable of to meet a price point. If I'm going to go shoot a property, they're going to get the very best images I can produce, and that's not a $200 job. That's a between 400 and $800 job for me to do a house, and most aren't willing to pay that. They just need, so I priced myself out of probably two-thirds of my clients. They just don't call me anymore. I have one client that will call me for smaller jobs where I'm shooting like, gosh, the last not the last one, but the one before that, I think it was 400 square foot space. It was tiny, little tiny condo, maybe 500 square feet. She'll call me for little jobs like that. The job after that was nothing on the interior. They just needed about 10 shots of the exterior. So, you know, small jobs, that's all I get. And I don't charge much for those, a couple $100, right? Those are $200 jobs. 10 shots here, 10 shots there, a couple $100. Even that's a little cheap if you really think about it. But uh yeah, it's too competitive. I mean, maybe I'm making excuses and I'm not finding clients that are willing to pay for the kind of work that I do. There's that, right? Because it's not there are agents paying top dollar or fair amount for the kind of work that the photographer will do. I just don't know how to get those kind of clients clearly. And that's on me, right? So I can blame the market being very competitive, but ultimately it still comes back to me. How come I'm not finding clients willing to pay what I'm charging? On the other hand, for the kind of work that I produce. So it's kind of a, I don't know, chicken or egg kind of thing. I have to work harder to find clients, and I'm just not going to work that hard. Um, because I try, it takes a lot of work. You have to get out there and network a lot. Go to all these different broker events, and meet people, and then eventually, if you meet enough people and network enough, you're going to meet the right clients that appreciate the work that you're doing and will pay the kind of money you're asking. I still have one client that's willing to pay what I ask. I'm still a little bit cheap, but that client's willing to pay 400 to $1,600 for a photo job. And for the amount of work that I'm doing, that's about right. But those kind of clients, they get a property like that maybe once or twice a year. The the volume in real estate photography, at least around here, is in the $200 range. If I wanted to do five $200 jobs a day, I could do it, right? There's people doing that. They're really hustling. I'm just not willing to do that. I'd rather go do one property for a couple of hours, spend 3 to 4 hours post processing. So it's a day job and get 800. get 800 bucks. That to me is reasonable. Less than that, less than I'm not willing to do it. And again, that's partially because I'm not working hard enough to find clients that are willing to pay that for that kind of level of work. So I don't want to blame the market completely, right? It has to fall onto me as well. And any thoughts on the benefits of upgrading from the M1 Mark III to an M1 Mark II? Okay, so the key benefit is the subject to text. It makes a world of difference in your bird and flight type photography. That's the biggest difference. Uh, if you don't care about that, you're not trying to do birds in flight, especially smaller birds like my backyard birds. Backyard birds are really tough on an EM1 Mark III because they move so fast and the camera's not tracking it for you. Because the tracking on the cameras in general are really bad. But that's really the key difference to me in my mind. Now, there's some additional things on the edges that aren't that important. Like, I think the starting with the OM1 Mark II, you got grad ND, like a graduated ND filter. There might be a couple other little things. But for the most part, the M1 Mark III is a fabulous camera, except when it comes to birds in flight, small birds. Larger birds like eagles and raptors and things, the M1 Mark III is fine. But for as the birds get smaller, talking about tree swallows, sparrows, blue jays, your typical backyard bird, warblers, these kind of things, the Ohm one is like a night and day difference. Uh, but if you're doing any kind of macro photography, nature, landscape, street photography, portrait work, real estate, commercial photography, EM1 Mark III will do it all. It'll do it. It'll do everything. So I don't see any need to update except for that one thing. In Canada, agents use their cell phone and I think auto pan and gamble for video shot. Yeah. So I know, yeah. So, but like I said, there are photographers out there using Instagram uh, and video, doing video work in a very creative way for real estate photography. And he's getting a ton of business and he charges pretty decent money. I don't know what he charges exactly, but he can go and do a video on a property in about 15 minutes in the house, field time. Somehow he's there like 10 or 15 minutes on site, and then he generates a video in another 10 or 15 minutes using an app on his phone. But he makes some amazing videos and he gets a ton of business and he's doing very well. I'm just not that creative, you know. I can't do what he does at all. Just the info I needed. Yeah, that's what I think. I'm trying to think. If I'm missing anything, someone leave it in the comments section, but I can't think of anything because I have the EM5 Mark III, which is basically the EM1 Mark II, and that camera will do everything my OM1 will do, save for birds in flight, small birds. Eagles, larger birds, yeah, EM5 Mark III is fine. But you have an EM1 Mark III, so that's got the extremely fast. It has the very good pro capture and buffer. It has uh, it'll do 50 frames per second. That all that stuff is there. So yeah, I can't think of anything other than the subject tech. You don't have to worry about rolling shutter with electronic shutter because rolling shutter is very well controlled on that EM1 Mark III. The video is basically the same. So I can't think of anything. Okay. Oh, you made an album. Okay. So there we go. Oh yeah, these are nice. Wow, pretty slick, Randy. Oh, I love that. Nice, very nice. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And you're at 1/1000th of a second. That's amazing. Pretty cool. EM1 Mark III is my mini EM1X. Yep, only a few good ones. See, this is what I said earlier to Darko, right? Find 10 pictures that you really like that you did using just a $30 filter. If you can do that, then I would say maybe invest in a, infrared or full spectrum camera or conversion of one. If you can't put 10 together, man, it's tough. You have the haze feature in Photolab to remove smoke from fireworks. Yeah, pretty much. It's called the clear view. So I don't think any of the I have smoke in them, but uh, let me see. 28th. Yeah, it was raining, so there's not really much smoke in any of these pictures. I think that's smoke there, right? And down there. So, and that's a JPEG. I shot all JPEG that night. I don't think it's not going to illustrate this, but what you want to use is this feature down here. It's called Clear View, and that will help cut through some of the smoke. Let me find gosh, maybe from last year. Let's see. Uh, I don't have any from last year connected to my computer right now. But if I take, let me take a shot that has some clouds in it. Like this shot here, it you get the idea, right? It does cut through, like it's very hazy all in here. You do that, maybe add a little micro contrast, and you can get rid of most of the haze and stuff. It's basically a dehaze feature. Okay, let's see. About 600 bucks for a full conversion. Yeah. So like I said, try a $30 filter first. And what will your next camera purchase be? It's a tough call. I'm guessing, like I just bought this one. Okay, let's see if it'll turn on now. Maybe that, yeah, now it's working. I don't know why it froze earlier. So I just bought this one. I don't think this should count. I just bought this as a toy, really. But I don't know. Honestly, I can show you what I have in my eBay. It's tough. Let's see what I've been looking at. I've been looking at a Pentax KP, a K70, the KF. I also looking at this TL2, and then I don't need a Blu-ray player. I need a SACD player, and this plays SACDs. But it's also a 4K Blu-ray player, so I might as well just, if I'm going to replace the Blu-ray player I got, I might as well get a 4K one, even though I don't even have a 4K TV. Uh, so yeah, I have these kind of on my watch list. This looks like a really nice camera. This will complement my Pentax monochrome camera, and it's not too expensive, right? So there's that, and then the K70 and KFs. KF is you want to talk about not updating a camera. The KF is basically the K70 with a few minor tweaks, and the K70 came out way back, like more than 10 years ago, I think, and this was released a few years ago. So I think I'll just unwatch this. I just kinda like the small size, but yeah, I'm not gonna buy that. I'm gonna take that off my watch list. But yeah, I'm kinda leaning towards maybe even this one, because 'cause I've always wanted to get back into the L-mount system, and Leica, of course, is part of the L-mount alliance. And I could pair this with, say, the Sigma 18 to 50 2.8, and I'd have a nice little compact, Leica camera that's very unique. Because I was looking at the Sigma BF, and I said, that's just too many compromises, kinda like the Lumix S9. Way too many compromises. Uh, the only compromise this camera makes is this Leica is no EVF. I can kinda live with that if that's the only compromise, but it has an electronic shutter, it has a hot shoe, interchangeable battery, et cetera, right? Uh, so I'm thinking about this guy. The problem is the Leica 28 millimeter, uh, I forget which one it is, one of these. What if I put an L mount? That's not bad. Well, the lens that goes with that camera, I can't remember exactly what it is really expensive. That's my problem. Is if I'm gonna get a Leica camera, I really should get a Leica lens with it. Then I can enjoy the experience as intended, versus getting the Leica camera, then putting a Sigma lens on it or other third party. I might as well just use my OM3 if I'm gonna just use third party lenses, right? Or Canon R8 or whatever other camera I have. So that's kind of what's holding me back. Another camera I've been thinking about is like I was looking at a older Pentax 645, but I've ruled that out. But the 645D had a CMOS. I'm sorry, yeah, it had a CMOS, not CMOS, a CCD medium format sensor in it, and I thought that would be kind of interesting to play with. But then those are getting, I mean, used prices are getting ridiculous, ridiculously expensive. So that's why I kind of started looking at the Pentaxes again because they're a little high, but they're not ridiculously high for what you're getting. At like a TL, that's a pretty decent price. 1,100 bucks, 1,200 bucks for a TL2, that's pretty decent. But if you look at used prices on other stuff, man, there's no way I'm paying that money for that kind of camera and technology. It's not that interesting, right? Uh, oh, this toy TLR, this is I think it's a 12 megapixel one. It's got a really tiny sensor, like 1/4, like a anyway, the image quality is crap, okay? It's okay. Uh, now that I have let me see if I can show you a few images from it. I took a few more this morning. Yeah. See see what they look like. And it also records video. Ooh, the USB-C port is slow. It won't even open up a JPEG. Let me just do a quick, let me transfer them over and I'll show you a couple. It's not letting me open them directly from the camera. That's gonna take a minute. I'll come back to it. And the great Vanzini's here. Oh, cool. How about a digital back for a re-TLR? What a kick that would be. Yeah. They sell digital backs for my Hasselblad 500. Of course, those are super expensive, right? It's the 907 series of digital cameras from Hasselblad. You can buy the older digital backs, but there are too many compromises in workflow for that to make any sense to me. So if I was going to get a digital back, it would, I really want to get the Hasselblad digital back. But those are like $6,000. They're just way too expensive. So if we look at like a Hasselblad 907, even the 50 megapixel version, $4,700 for a used one, and that's coming from Japan, so I'd have to pay a tariff. What about just in the USA? 5,000. Or I could just buy a Hasselblad camera for half that. This would be kind of cool, but that's the original version. That one really sucked. The X1D Mark II. This would be a cool camera to have. Midwest Photo. Cool. And it comes with the lens. Man, that's not a bad deal. I'm just gonna watch it. I'm not gonna buy it, but I'm gonna watch it. It's an interesting camera. This one's 5,000, 2,500 for the original without a lens. That's the that's the that's the hook though, is the lens is expensive. Here's one without the lens, and then I could probably adapt an old Nikon lens or something to it. Honestly, I don't know what I would do with this camera any different than I'm doing, say, with my cheap toy camera, my TLR. I would just be having fun with it, but at that price, I don't know. See, did this finish transferring yet? No, it's not done. Wow, the transfer rate is really slow on that camera. I should have took the SD card out and read it off directly. There's rumors of a wildly new Nikon. Oh, I haven't heard of that. Uh, Eric says next purchase should be a Hasselblad, so you can mark that off your life bucket list. That's really why I got the Leica. Was sick of seeing others with one. I'll at least have one before my time is up. Yeah, I think about it sometimes, but I have to earn a lot more money. I'm just barely scraping by here every month. And let's see. I'm sorry. Let me back up. There's a lot of questions here on this. Namara, do you know or have you seen a detailed explanation of the advanced sharpening options in DxO, radius, threshold, etc.? I don't have one and I haven't seen one, but it's basically an unsharp mask, right? So there's nothing particularly special about it. Uh, the real power of DxO is in the optics module that intelligently sharpens the lens, or sharpens the image, I should say, from a particular lens camera combination. And then the additional unsharp masking that you're talking about, radius threshold, and also pixel. So pixel radius and threshold, what was the other one? And I guess there's a level slider. I've never done a video on that. I should. I do have a video for sharpening on Olympus Workspace. If you watch that video, that will apply to DxO's unsharp mask because they're the same tool, just in different software, but it's the same exact tool. So if you watch that video, uh, that would be pretty much the same thing that DxO's doing, and any other software that has an unsharp mask. Uh, and I'll just put a link to that here because it may be hard to find. Mm-mm-mm. It is hard to find. There it is, episode 258. This one I go into detail about unsharp mask. They have strength, radius, and threshold, the same as in every other tool that uses unsharp mask. This is actually a pretty decent video. It's old, but it's pretty decent. So I'll put a link to that. Uh, Here. Okay. And so you'd like a digital back for your Nikon F4. Be a lot easier, just buy a Nikon F adapter, which I'm sure you already have. Because the only advantage to the F4, other than if you like the shutter sound and all that, but uh, yeah, I would get a Nikon ZF and just get a Nikon F adapter. Pretty much the same thing, right? Because the key to the older cameras was not the bodies, in my opinion, it was really the lenses. And Olympus M43 cameras. Well, hello. I assume this is Siegfried, right? How are you? And what's your approach to photo file management? Originals, edited, RAW plus JPEG cloud storage. Okay, so basically it's chronological. So year, quarter, and then day. That's the core of my file management. And then I just back up entire folders to external hard drives. So I have a working hard drive on my computer, which is the current year. Then that's broken down by first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And each quarter is broken down by day. And then the day I typically rename the folders. So let me pull in. Can I make this any bigger? I can't make this any bigger. Well, so basically I have a folder here, 2025. I keep a separate folder for clients. And then I have miscellaneous stuff down here. I have certain projects. This is typically because for YouTube videos and things like that. And then I keep a separate folder for my videos. So within year, I have first quarter, second quarter. And then in second quarter, I just break it down by day, but then each day I put the date and then I label in what it was. Like this is kind of Wingo, this is Meadowlark. Sometimes I create subfolders for things that I do a lot of. So like second quarter backyard birds, I'll make a separate folder for that. But that's still within the second quarter. A second quarter of my dog Ellie, I keep a separate folder for that. But it's basically still chronological because it's in the second quarter. So that's my basic file organization. Clients are a little bit different. I have it clients by name or yeah, basically by name. And then within name, I go by I have a deliverables folder. Uh, so that's a whole different workflow. It's just broken down by client. The only JPEGs I keep are for clients if they're deliverable. Other than that, I don't really keep my JPEGs. I typically delete them. I only keep the RAWs. And then cloud storage, no. I just buy separate external hard drives and keep everything internal. The correct workflow would be to have uh, all of the above. Separate hard drives, the hard drives in different locations physically, like one at your house, one at, say, your brother's house or at the office if you work, and then also cloud storage. So you have this entire backup workflow. For me, none of my photography is that important that I have to go that to that extent. If I lost all of my images today, it's okay. Anything that really matters, I have a JPEG on Flickr or Instagram. You know, so I use Flickr for JPEGs, of family photos and things like that. So even if everything burned down, the photos that mean anything to me, they're in a private folder on Flickr. Uh, but yeah, if you're working for a living and you also do more documentary type photography and you're selling licenses to your images, you will need a much more robust cataloging system because if you want to license an image of, say, this particular city block, right, then you need to be able to find it quickly because somebody might be saying, I'm looking for, you know, the corner of 7th and King Street from 1970, and they want to license that image from you. How are you going to find that? You need a very, very robust cataloging system. And that's a little bit beyond what I can explain here. It's way beyond, right? Because I've never done it. But I do know kind of the basics of cataloging. You need a very advanced cataloging system for that kind of stuff. Very robust, I should say. Um, but that's my basic thing. So I don't do cloud storage. I don't keep JPEG except what I upload to Flickr, and those are typically family photos that are important in a private folder. And I prune like crazy. I delete images like crazy, my RAWs, because a lot of it is just pro capture. So I got thousands of images that don't, matter anyway. They're out of focus or their wingspans not in the right position, all that stuff. Oops. And how about a GFX 50R, the rangefinder style? No, I don't know. The Fuji GFX system, I get it. It's the same sensors in the Hasselblad. But if I went that way, I would want to get the 100, the GFX 100, because the 50, I have a 60 megapixel Sony A705. So I feel like I'd be stepping down a little bit. Maybe, yeah, I'll be gaining dynamic range and 16-bit raw files, maybe. But uh, I probably want to lean towards if it was a Fuji, I'd lean towards the 100. And then you have an ASMR driving video. Yeah, Randy has a lot of videos of him driving around, playing games, things like that. It's a very different channel. It's not really a photography channel, right? And I file by camera and date, then separate in that folder the raw files and only have finished JPEGs showing when I click on the dated folder. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, knowing what camera you shot with is easier to find if you have them in separate folders, but I have too many different cameras. I'd rather just do a search in the EXIF data and then a list of cameras, the list of photos for that camera will come up because it doesn't matter to me which camera I shot it on most of the time, right? So I don't need to catalog or folder by camera. No, it's the same sensor in the Fuji and the Hasselblad. It's just different processing engines, so you get different colors. Uh, People seem to really like the Hasselblad colors, but then people like the Fuji colors, so it's all a matter of preference. For me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to shoot raw and calibrate the colors the way I like them. Okay. Wild rumors. Let me just look at this. Nikon rumors. I don't see anything off the bat on their page, but yeah, I don't see anything. Yeah. What? Did he publish a video or something? How do you guys know that Jerry passed away? Oh, wow. He did publish a video this morning. Oh, I missed that one. So I was just looking. Breaks my heart. I'm gonna cry if I watch that video. Oh, he was looking so good. Like, I know I watched this one from a month ago, but I didn't watch this one or this one. Definitely not this one. This is too new. And I watched that one. So I don't get it. Or I'm a little surprised, but yeah, it's heartbreaking. Oh, yeah, Jerry passed away, Randy. So I'm gonna watch that video and drop some words, some condolences there. 'Cause I know exactly what he's going through. But is there money in product photography? I assume so. It's not a genre I'm in. I don't know anybody that does it, but you know, The when I think of product photography now, I think about like the Instagram people, right? That get clothes or shoes or sunglasses to do lifestyle type photography shots. That's one area of product photography is lifestyle. I think there's money there to be had, but the kind of product shots where you put it on a table and you get the close-up detail shots and you get the different uh, full product shots, right? Your static shots. I don't know if there's money in that, but if you can provide all of the above, the lifestyle shots with the detail shots with the product shots, if you can do all of that, then I think you can make some money. But it's not an area I'm in. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here and watch that video from Jerry. I'm gonna eat before I watch it though. Oh, that's gonna be a tearjerker. I know it. I mean, it's life though, right? Like I said, Jerry had a good life. Roberto had a good life with Jerry. So I think really there's nothing to be sad about. We should be happy that those two were, very lucky to have each other and celebrate it. But yeah, I'm already starting to tear up. It's still very sad though, right? It's hard to not tear up about that if you know Roberto and the community here. But it's part of life, right? We all have losses in life, and we just have to look back and make sure we don't have any regrets, and then we can celebrate when life happens because that's just what how it is, right? So you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll be back on Tuesday for Prime Day specials, shopping for photography gear. I got a pretty good feel for what's a good deal and what isn't at this point because I've been doing it every week for feels like forever. And I do it every day in my own personal life. So stay tuned for that. Definitely, if you haven't purchased DxO Photolab 8 and you've been thinking about it, today is the day. It's 25% off. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait till October to get another deal. Probably in October, they'll have a new version out anyway. So maybe if you think that's worth waiting for, but I think if you want DxO now, it's now's the time. So take advantage of that. And uh, thanks everyone for joining me today. Thank you so much for your support. And we will see you again soon.